Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here, the final part of Castlevania Legacy of Darkness, in which a little girl storms Dracula's castle and fucking murders him. James Rolfe said that doesn't feel like Castlevania. To me, that feels exactly like Castlevania.
If you played Rondo of Blood, yes.
If you played Rondo of Blood, yes. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to mention this during the actual boss fight at the end of last part because we were on a tangent, but I actually really like Carrie's rival encounter with Actrice there at the end. Because, like, playing off the child serial killer element of the historical source material, it says that Actrice sacrificed 100 children to become the vampire that she is. And also, one of those was her own child. This, I like the idea that Carrie herself takes issue with this because her own parental figure, who is not her actual mother, was so caring toward her. And we're gonna see this at the end. Shortcut.
Okay.
We're gonna see this at the end, but Carrie's good ending involves her visiting her stepmother's grave. Her stepmother is dead, and she's honoring her. It's implied that, maybe her stepmother's death was part of the reason she decided to go fight Dracula. Although, the story is underpresented, so who knows?
I'm glad that they established that, because the evil stepmother trope is something that's really kind of come to annoy me. In games with the more serious story. Obviously, it's a classic fairy tale trope of the evil stepmother and the good birth mother and whatnot, but that's just not the real world. And there are plenty of step parents who are far better as parents than the biological parents, and it bothered. I'm hung up on it because this is a plot point in Ace Attorney 6. Ace Attorney 7 doesn't exist. Ace Attorney 6, oh my god, I hate that.
Damn it. Oh.
Okay.
I like how they put a floor in that pit just so that you could land on something and grotesquely die. That's a very Tomb Raider kind of design, In Tomb Raider, I don't know why, but core design, I think, seemed to take pride in how disturbing it was when Laura's model ragdolled to death, and you just hear her break on impact.
That game has a self-destruct code.
What?
Tomb Raider has a self-destruct code?
Yes.
Oh.
Why?
I don't know, actually. I never thought about it that way.
Like most codes, they're basically just substitutes for console commands that need to be used for debugging. So maybe they just needed to test what would happen if Laura died in certain locations.
Or maybe if you, through leaks, found of a secret debug code that you think is still in there, it's the developer's way of saying, play the fucking game.
So what happens when you do the code to make Laura die?
She explodes.
She just explodes?
She just explodes?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That might have actually just been them testing the explosion physics, now that I think about it. I mean, that's not as funny as it's a fuck you to players who wanted to use cheat codes, but...
Isn't this great, Laura? You, me, and the 10-foot wall you put behind me.
It's which Tomb Raider specifically are you talking about?
I believe it's Tomb Raider 2. Give me a second.
Oh, okay. You know what? If it was Tomb Raider 2... I wouldn't put it past them to have included it as a troll for people who are looking for the infamous non-existent nude code. you say, hey, if you put this code into your game, you get to see Lara naked, but she explodes. Ow. I didn't take any fall damage.
I was going to say you took no damage from that.
I didn't. I didn't. I was surprised because that was a long fall. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's probably them being like, yeah, Laura's the hottest character in video games because she exploded. She's a real bombshell, that Lara Croft.
They were definitely aware of the sex appeal aspect of the marketing by that point, because by that point it was heavy in the advertisements, and also the ending of the game has this sort of semi-gag where she shoots up a bunch of people trying to invade her home in a bathrobe and then shoots the camera saying, "You've seen quite enough." But in Tomb Raider 1, like, there's absolutely, like, pretty much nothing in the game that really leans into sex appeal. I don't think it was, like, a major element of the main creator's vision for the character, but the main creator wasn't involved in the sequels, I don't think. Actually, now that I think about it, the only game he was involved in after Tomb Raider 1 was the soft reboot, Legends, I think.
That's interesting. Since as someone with very little exposure to Tomb Raider, is the first one considered the best one of the old games, or
no, not even by a long shot. It's the first game in the series, so it is kind of rough in that aspect. It's actually a better game in the remaster than it was in the original, for a simple reason. In the original Tomb Raider 1, your jump was delayed. It would only trigger on specific frames of a running animation. So you would frequently press the jump button and would have to wait a few frames before it hit a point in her animation cycle where she would jump.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah. Thankfully, the remaster fixed that. So it feels much more responsive now. But I would say the best one in the series was probably Tomb Raider 4, maybe Tomb Raider 3.
That 4 was Revelation, wasn't it?
Last Revelation, yeah.
Last Revelation, thank you.
Yeah.
Was that one on PS1 or 2?
PS1.
It was multi-platform.
Oh, yeah. They were all technically multi-platform. They had PC releases, but...
Well, Last Revelation was also on Dreamcast as well.
Yeah, I think Tomb Raider 1 was on Saturn. I don't remember Tomb Raider 2 having a Sega release.
No. I think Saturn only got the first game.
Yeah, but all three of the first games had PC releases. I think all of them did. They have PC releases on Steam, anyway.
What was Tomb Raider Gold? You remember that one? Was that PC?
Okay, so the PC versions had exclusive level pack expansions that the PS1 did not get. The first official re-release of those level expansions in decades was the remasters. So we all have the content from Gold and all of that. But for the longest time, you had to get that shit off of abandonware sites, even if you owned the Steam release, because the Steam releases did not contain the expansions.
I have to say, I am really glad that we live in a day and age where this sort of stuff, it's common for re-releases to add them.
Oh, yes.
Like, even to the point where, like, if you're playing the Nintendo Switch Online, the Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3, fuck you, Nintendo, comes with, like, you load up the ROM, and the ROM already has the e-reader levels on the saved on the thing. It's like, They know that this stuff was hard to get for a while, and so they're like, okay, yeah, no, people should have this.
My absolute favorite example of that these days is actually Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition. Where, okay, this requires some backstory. Originally, when they were doing the DLC expansions for Neverwinter Nights, they contracted one of the last things that they contracted was Darkness Over Daggerford, an expansion that they ultimately canceled the official release of because they were canceling the entire DLC thing. They were just putting an end to it. So the developers released Darkness Over Daggerford in its slightly incomplete state for free, which was neat. And then BioWare screwed them over by releasing the one more expansion before they officially ended it. It was just like, why? Why would you do that? But anyway, Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition came with a bunch of the old DLC, but one of the most noteworthy inclusions is an official and more polished version of Darkness Over Daggerford that the developers got the opportunity to release for money at last, like 2 decades or so after they originally made it.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. It's also really good, is the thing. It's been a sort of cult classic of the Neverwinter Nights fan community ever since it was released for free originally. So,
I mean, there's always Star Fox 2 to use for an example for that as well. So,
well, that's also a case of where that game was just done and sitting on a shelf in Nintendo's back pocket.
Darlin Cuthbert's knees just constantly shaking. It's like, when is it gonna be coming out?
I mean, especially after that Nintendo Giga Leak with all that stuff, it is still my firm belief that Nintendo has a fully translated version of Mother 3 in English, like done by them, hidden somewhere, and they're just not releasing it. That's my tinfoil hat theory, because like, they know that there's a market for it. Like, they've made fun of it.
I don't know, because I think the issues that they've always cited as why it would be problematic to release it is surface level shit that you know from the get-go. So why bother localizing the entire thing just to get cold feet?
yeah.
I mean, this is why it's a conspiracy theory. It's not thought out that well. It's just one of those things where, knowing Nintendo, I would not be surprised if they just had something. And if I remember correctly, it's not just like the insensitive stuff, as well as like, isn't some of the music like just straight up like almost?
It's very close.
it's just stolen from other places, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't think they'd have to change that, and I don't know if they want to. So,
Well,
you know.
changing the music is normally an easy thing, but they might have to overhaul the rhythm system too, which would be a production.
Yeah, especially considering that this is a game from 2006 on hardware they might not even be able to do anymore. So, you know. But again, that's my crackpot conspiracy theory. Nintendo has Mother 3. They're just never going to give it to you.
My particular favorite lost content being revived is actually in F-Zero 99. They brought back the broadcasted teleview courses for the Ace League.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing that.
Which they never released outside of Japan. So.
That's pretty cool.
Wasn't there also an F-Zero 2 planned in development for SNES?
That was made into BSF-Zero and BSF-Zero 2.
Okay.
So someone recreated based on footage of BSF-Zero 2, but no ROM exists of that game, so it'd be really cool if Nintendo made like a Joker League for F-Zero 99. Just saying. But yeah.
Joker, like
the card,
like the
because it's Knight, Queen, King, Ace, and Joker League. Usually what they do.
Yeah.
Imagine actually hearing the Joker and thinking of the card instead of Persona 5 or Batman in the year 2024.
In the year 2024, Balatro came out and is a Game of the Year contender. I don't want to hear it from you, all right? That game's all about Jokers.
This is a Joker joke.
Yeah. There's a Joker in Balatro named Even Steven, and he gives you extra points when you play even cards. And he has an even amount of bells and floppy things on his hat. There's also an Odd Todd who gives you more points when you play odd cards and has an odd number of floppy things and bells on his hat. Balatro's so good. I love that game. You should buy it.
But is it better than Shadows of the Erd Tree?
Yes. It's so here's the thing. Balatro is like
this is before the Game Awards for everyone watching.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Balatro is like Tetris, where Tetris is one of the best video games of all time. Is it, of the same scope as a game like, I don't know, Elden Ring or whatnot? No, it's not. But part of it not having that kind of scope is what makes it good. Where it's like, it's an infinitely replayable puzzle/roguelite game, and has some of the best video game mechanics of all time incorporated into it.
Somehow.
Kind of like,
in all 3 playthroughs, I managed to botch that fucking jump.
Yeah, no, I remember this specific platforming section, and you had trouble with it last time, too.
I had trouble with it as Reinhardt, I had trouble with it as Cornell, and somehow I managed to fuck it up as Carrie, too. But in all 3 cases, I ended up being actually kind of glad, because I forgot all 3 times that there was a weapon upgrade down there, and I ended up needing it, because I just died.
Anyway, play Balatro, it's great. End of tangent.
End of tangent. Well, now what we're going to talk about?
Well, then we begin the new tangent.
How about the way the camera always catches on the fucking walls? They don't make video games like they used to, am I right, guys?
Unfortunately, I couldn't find a good reference video for the self-destruct code from Tomb Raider 2 because looking up cheats gives you a compilation of all cheats, which is like, no, I just want the self-destruct code. Thank you. And one other video is like 2 minutes long, and the first minute has nothing to do with the trick code itself. I was like, oh Christ!
Oh, they're going.
Of course it doesn't.
It's like all those recipes online where they go into their life history about everything.
No, my favorite is actually when I want to look up, and I don't really see this now than I used to back in the day. When I'm looking up a specific song I want to listen to, and it has a 30-second intro of the channel, and it's like, I'm not here for you.
Oh yeah,
like I'm here for this music that you don't own.
Yeah, I've seen so many channels that have these fancy but also very lazy looking kind of anime intros where it's just like a bunch of high octane clips from various shows, and then there's a big old title card, and then the rest of the video is just their upload of a particular song from a soundtrack, and it's just like, you know, if you're going to upload a song from a soundtrack, you are aware people want to be able to put these things on loop and listen to them, right?
Yeah. This is why I am very happy that most video game soundtracks have the 30-minute extended videos on YouTube that you can just put on, and it's just like, thank you. There's no intro. It's in good quality sound. You're doing the Lord's work, ladies.
You don't even need an extended version. You can just right-click on the video player and pick loop. I think the extended versions are just like a relic of a time when that function wasn't there.
Yeah, but it also, like, there's always, like, a little bit of a cut, and that takes me out of it, and so if I can leave it on for a half an hour without having to do anything...
Yeah, but in order for it to loop naturally, it needs to be able to, like, actually loop as an audio file, and that's not always even possible. So the extended version might still have that cut, is what I'm saying.
No, sometimes it is. Like, so if you have a video game with where a song has an intro and then when it loops, it skips that intro, that's where the longer version's better, because then you're not fading out and then the video starts again and you're playing the intro. Yeah. I guess unless if you really like that intro and want to hear it again, then, you know, you do you.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm not gonna judge. I'm just gonna have the Shantae Forest theme on for another half an hour. Thanks.
Anyway, Renan fucked off to go sell to people who are fighting in World War I. Apparently, he's like half a century early for that. But you know, he was also half a century plus 8 years early for that when he said the same thing 8 years earlier to Cornell.
You only fought him as
he has a
Reinhardt,
copy
right?
sheet that he just reads from. It's fine. He's in the business.
Yeah, anyway, it's time to finally fight Dracula. But first, you weren't here the last time I did this, were you, John?
This fight in particular? What do you mean?
No, jumping into the fire for the secret bonus things.
Oh, okay, well, first off, it's cool that's essentially Castlevania tradition at this point.
Yeah. It's just like, it's a little less obvious than you would think because the flames to the side don't have a hurt box. You can just jump into the flames and you'll be fine.
Well, I mean, you say that, but also, like...
Oh, no, you can't even use a meat you already have to fill your health because you're at full health. Oh, it's just wasted.
I can't possibly hold 12 meat.
Wow, Carrie, why does your mom let you have 2 meats?
The thing is, roast chicken being the thing that you get out of that particular candle is a bit insulting because it's the weakest healing item. But the candle is supposed to give you a healing kit if you don't have one. I wish it would just always give you a healing kit, though, because, you know, I don't need roast chicken. I can get those from Dracula himself.
You told me, I think you remember, I remember last time you said if you save there, you can't get more weapon upgrades if you
can't leave the boss room. The door just won't open for you. Once you're in the boss room, you're stuck. Anyway,
Empty. Except not really.
Where have I seen this before?
You know, Dracula is supposed to be able to turn into a bat, fog, and a wolf. Has he ever used his wolf form for anything?
Are we including within the series itself, or can we include cameos and other things?
Well, I mean, within Castlevania, have they ever...
Within Castlevania?
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure the only time in the series they mention he has a wolf form is Rondo of Blood's opening. And that's just like an acknowledgement of it being a thing Dracula is known to do in the Dracula mythology. What?
I don't think he ever becomes a wolf in the book.
That's from a Bela Lugosi movie thing.
Yeah.
I know in the book, I believe he does do the bat and the mist, but I don't remember if he does the...
I was legit about to make reference to one particular battle, but that was against OD in Bloodstained. It's like, nope, that doesn't count. But no, like I'm thinking of like all the Dracula encounters off the top of my head, and I haven't played every Castlevania game.
Quick, get Derek on the line.
Maybe Castlevania Erotic Violence has him.
Fuck. I cannot think of a Dracula encounter where he utilizes the wolf transformation. It's always either the bat or mist.
You know what's great? You know, when Carrie fights Actrice, she has this really callous statement where she tells Actrice that he sent you here to delay me because he knows I can beat him. And when you actually fight Dracula, he's so comically easy as Carrie that it actually kind of works as something Dracula would do in game. Like, he knows the girl with the homing projectiles has the perfect counter to his stupid teleportation game.
Shit. Somebody doesn't have to get 2 feet away from me to hurt me? Fuck, I'm screwed.
I almost wish that they had given Carrie Cornell's harder version of Dracula Phase 1 just to kind of compensate for this, because it's hilariously easy to fight Dracula Phase 1 as Carrie. You just hop and shoot. He can't even get most of his attacks off if you manage to get a lock on him.
Yeah, like when you hit him, the projectiles go away. Like the shockwave there just disappeared once you hit him.
Yeah. I'm just healing up because it's the end of the fight, and I had a moment to pause before the cutscene triggered. I want to enter Dracula Phase 2 and 3 with as much health as I can get.
Dracula's like, why do you have 13 meat?
Because 13's better than 12.
Did you go to my secret area? That's my meat.
I like to imagine that Carrie, in the moment before Dracula exploded, just turned around, pulled out a bucket of Popeye's chicken, took a bite, and said, "Popeye's chicken is the shit."
That's a little Nicky reference.
So, this isn't actually Dracula,
well, that wasn't in my
right?
2024 bingo card.
Because Malice is reincarnated Dracula. Unless this is Malice.
No, this is Gilderay.
Okay. He's
disguised as Dracula right now. He looks exactly like the real thing, but his dialogue is like hella melodramatic. The Malice is he doesn't actually like attack you unless you defeat Dracula without defeating that fucking tool first. I'm sorry, Charlie Vincent. I defaulted to that because I couldn't remember his name for a few seconds.
Oh yeah, he just kind of disappeared for most of the game. Now that I think about it, like
yeah, he appears once in the villa and then once during the good ending, and then you don't even see what happens to him after the final boss. I like to imagine he just got stranded at the top of Dracula's castle, and when it collapsed, he was still on top of it, and we don't ever have to see that fucking tool again. But I suppose Igarashi removing him from canon is just as good.
Is it more painful to die a painful death or to never exist at all?
Yes.
It's, I'm surprised more Castlevania games haven't tried to do a Metroid-style escape sequence, considering that the castle collapsing is something that happens in nearly every game.
Yeah. I mean, not even the Metroidvania games do that, which is weird. Maybe they thought, maybe that's a little too on the nose for the genre shift.
I mean, honestly, I think that it probably would make a better linear platforming level, honestly, but...
Yeah. Hey, Malice. How you doing? Where'd you get the horse? Where did he get the horse? This thing is just here. And it never appears again.
Am I high?
Are there winged unicorn enemies in any other Castlevania game?
I'm surprised it wasn't a bicorn.
Nailed it.
Because bicorns are supposed to be the evil unicorns, from what I remember.
You remember how, like, when I made that jump as Reinhardt, I almost wiped out? Good times. Good times.
So now she's able to tell that he was evil. Oh man, you couldn't before.
One of the things that bugs me about this scene is that the dialogue that Carrie and Reinhardt say is, I think, exactly the same, just with their names changed, which I don't think is the case in any other scene where they're both in. They usually, at least, like, even if they're in the middle of the same cutscene, they usually have different lines that reflect their personalities. Like,
so, I kind of would have liked to have fun with that. But it's like, this evil I'm sensing surpasses that of even Dracula. What are you, Malice? I'm Dracula.
Well, shit.
Well, she's comparing to the Dracula she just fought, not the actual Dracula. Which, makes sense. He's just like an underling in disguise.
So when do they establish that that's Gilderay? Is that only something that you would know if you played Cornell's story?
It's something that you would only know if you looked it up, because it is only mentioned in, like, Gilderay appears in Cornell's story as himself. I think the closest that you can do to figure it out on your own by playing the game in the original Castlevania 64 was to, like, read the gravestones outside the villa to see whose place this was. And then to put it together with the fact that Actrice is here as a lieutenant, because historically she was his accomplice. But that would involve Castlevania players actually looking into the history of the characters, which, let's face it, at the time this game came out was unlikely, because 1999. It's not like
they were too busy dealing with the Nostradamus prophecy that Dracula would come back. Everybody knows about that. I mean, you were talking about how he was being, the other Dracula was being melodramatic. I mean,
well, I don't necessarily count Malice's dialogue as being, like, pure Dracula character, because it's kind of blurry as to, like, whether Malice is Vlad Dracula himself or some combination reincarnation thing. Like, is he like Soma? Is he more like Soma in the sense that he's a reincarnation, but he's his own character? It's difficult to tell. But when Dracula talks in Cornell's campaign, he sounds more like Symphony of the Night Dracula, just without the Narmi voice. Like, he's goading Cornell with a philosophical argument rather than just talking endlessly about evil and darkness.
Yeah, obviously this is due to the game being underdeveloped, but I feel like there's something more interesting that they could have done with Malice that they just didn't do. And I mean, they did some of that with Soma, but even then, Soma isn't really, like, Soma being Dracula, there's not really a lot that's done interesting with that either. It's just like, I don't want to be Dracula. Okay, well then do this to not be Dracula. Cool. And then he does it.
Honestly, I think that Igarashi didn't even realize that he was retreading old ground with a Dracula reincarnation story. when he made Soma.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Because I think he doesn't like Castlevania 64's story because of the fundamental, like, disagreement between his philosophy and KCE Kobe's. KCE Kobe just viewed Castlevania as a series that could be used to tell a bunch of disconnected stories. In other words, Zelda without the pretense. But Igarashi was all about that interconnected canonicity, you know, the continuity, the ongoing narrative. He wanted there to be a long-running story between all of the games. In other words, what people want Zelda to be, but it isn't. But like KCE Kobe, the stories they made barely compatible with each other, let alone a larger franchise. So he just kind of nixed all their games from canon when he took over. That's why Circle of the Moon doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Is this so you don't get the scene if you get the bad ending?
Yeah. Malice will just meet you in the throne room and put on his innocent act, and you'll leave, and that's the end.
So the first phase is the final boss and the bad ending.
Yes, and you also fight a vampire version of this guy. I don't really regret not showing that, because apparently it's just a regular-ass vampire fight. Except he uses unholy water.
I would like the view. He still has the giant cross on his back, and there's just a constant sizzle noise through the encounter because he never takes it off.
Yeah, that would be funny. Anyway, Dracula Phase 3 as Carrie. I mentioned this before. Bit of a headache. I appreciate it more, and I appreciate it more now, though, because it is a far superior final boss fight to what Cornell gave us. You weren't here for Cornell's final boss, John. You did not see the clusterfuck. Now, from what I understand, from what people in the comments have said, what you're actually supposed to do during Cornell's final boss is attack the projectiles instead of trying to dodge them. Just attack through the projectiles, which might explain why that boss lasted like 20 seconds the first time I attempted it. Because I think I just accidentally attacked through the projectiles and it kept hitting as a weak point. But in the version that I actually recorded for the commentary, I was being DMC juggled all over the place, and it was just not a good time.
I mean, I wouldn't have assumed you could have attacked through the projectiles either. That is a really cool final boss, like dragon, centipede.
Right, you didn't get to see this last time. You had to duck out during the end of Reinhardt's. Yeah, the giant dragon centipede is my favorite of the two final bosses. It's also mechanically a lot easier to wrap your head around. Also, it doesn't have a fucking annoying fixed camera that looks like a Final Fantasy battle. So, you know.
It did look like a Final Fantasy battle. I do appreciate that the new story does have a different final boss. But yeah, I think this looks way cooler than the other one.
You'll see a glowing fireball floating around in the air occasionally. Yeah, you see it back there. It's like it's hovering inside Dracula's model at the moment. Yeah, that thing. Don't hit it. Do not hit that fireball with your homing shot.
Why?
What happens if you hit it with your homing shot?
Look, if that thing decides to go after you, it actually explodes in a nuclear mushroom cloud. Oh no. Oh no. I hit it. Help.
Oh my god, you weren't kidding.
That thing exists purely to fuck with Carrie. You don't have to worry about it as Reinhardt because you're up in Dracula's face, whipping him directly over and over. You will not hit the fireball. But it is easy to accidentally hit the thing as Carrie.
It just reminded me of a Star Fox boss. Like, at some point or another, I'm waiting for Slippy to show up in the bottom and saying enemy shield analyzed.
I think I've seen something in Star Fox that had a similar environment to this.
Yeah, it does look like the tank level from Star Fox 64.
But we did it. Huzzah.
And now we get to sit through this wonderful enemy exploding animation again. You know, the other final boss did this too, but at least something was happening during it, you know, with him stealing the wolf power and all.
So the vampire hunter guy existed only for us to, like, just for that one bit at the end where we almost trust Malice again, and then...
Yes, and then he dunks a gallon of holy water on him and says, "Ha, I called your bluff."
So that character, like, didn't really even need to be in the game to begin with.
No, not really.
I mean, yeah, but also he's the only variable in the game that divides the good ending and the bad ending. Like,
yeah.
The reason you get the bad ending is because you were too slow and he got turned into a vampire, so he couldn't foil the plot. And I think I said this earlier in the playthrough, but I think the character was conceptualized, at least, as a Van Helsing reference, because he's an old guy whose real weapon in the fight against Dracula is his knowledge of vampires. But he doesn't really pull it off all that well.
No, not really, because Van Helsing was also like had a personality.
He was also there for
stuff.
more than 5 seconds.
Yeah. It also isn't super clear that that's the connection, is that, like, if you were chasing, like, this guy as you went through and you saw, like, clues that he was there or whatnot, then maybe how fast you were in the gameplay, whether or not you could save him, you could draw that connection.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I could imagine, like, playing the game the first time, getting the bad ending, playing it again, getting the good ending, and not knowing what I did. Other than, I'm better at the game, so I beat it faster.
The only indication that he's going after Dracula, and you should probably hurry to beat him there, is that he says he's going after Dracula. He doesn't imply a time limit, though. And he spends that entire level sitting in one room, so it's not like he leaves. So
there's also no reason why you should think that him being there first would mean anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Whew.
Oh, that's convenient. We teleport out of the castle.
That happened to Reinhardt, too.
And so X ponders the reality of the castle crumbling. Why must Reploids fight?
What's a Reploid?
Why must Reploids fight?
The fuck is a Reploid?
Do you think Sigma and Dracula have the same contractors?
I don't know. But if the contractor was the one who built the castle, he also built the dragon centipede body, because they both took about as long to... Actually, no, the castle took less time to crumble than Dracula did. That's backwards.
Honestly, skill issue, Dracula.
That horse is too thin, and it bothers you. Anyway, Reinhardt's ending is this kind of like stereotypical the hero gets the girl ending, where Rosa comes back and she's not a vampire anymore, and they hug and they look out over the castle and they reflect on the nature of humanity's fight with Dracula, and how if they have love and each other, they can move forward into the future. Carrie just gets this really somber visit to her mother's grave with barely any dialogue, and I kind of like her ending more, if that makes sense.
It's one of those things where less is more, and you're allowed to use your imagination and try to think about what she's feeling by seeing what she's doing, versus, you know, them going on your typical video game, but if we have hope for the future, everything will end up being okay kind of speech that you hear in every video game, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that she's only got one texture for her face doesn't help the scene all that much, but, you know, N64 game.
But, like, I just like the tone of this ending. And it's just, like, the music, the way it's, like, very deliberately shot in this low frame rate slow motion. Like, they deliberately dialed down the frame rate for this scene. It has to be deliberate because there's nothing graphically going on here. And it's just like, it made me feel things. And everyone says that Carrie has the worst good ending, but the best bad ending. And I disagree. I think she's got the best endings all around. I do like Reinhardt's good ending. His bad ending was a bit Like, it got the
What
point
happens
across.
in his bad
Oh,
ending?
he just rides off with Malice, and Malice makes a spooky face.
Oh.
You know.
Straight on Michael Jackson's Thriller. You know what I mean?
Also, what kind of flowers are those? I don't recognize the flowers.
Low polygon.
Rest in peace, Castlevania.
Yeah.
The whole thing?
I mean, it's been a while since there was a new game, right? Like,
look. If Konami ever contracts anyone to make another new game, I'll eat my hat.
You don't wear a hat.
Yes, I do. I wear a hat everywhere. Especially while I'm playing video games. Do you know the Leon S. Kennedy haircut is one of the most impractical hairstyles you could ever imagine? It's terrible. It's terrible for
That's
work.
not even what I was getting at. Like, I don't think I've ever seen you wear a hat. Maybe like at an airport.
No,
but...
when I went to the convention, I brought my PlayStation along and I was playing BioShock in the hotel that time. I was wearing the hat the entire time I was playing.
So we were talking about Rest in Peace Castlevania. Haunted Castle Revisited is the newest Castlevania game as of this recording.
Yes.
The last Castlevania game to come out before that, 10 years ago, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2. The last mainline Castlevania game before that, Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth, 2009.
Yes.
Yeah,
indeed.
it's been a minute. It's been a minute since Castlevania came out.
Yeah, we had like Harmony of Despair in the middle there, and that was a nice holdover. Except it was never holding over until for anything in particular worth holding over for. The drought kept going.
I still think though that game needs a proper PC release.
It does. And you know what? I thought for like a short time that there was a good like fan-made remake of it, except when I actually tried it, it was jank as hell. And I thought like maybe that was just because it was a beta, like they were intending to like polish it up later. But now when I went to join their Discord, they were just really blasé about it. Like that was what they made, and that was what you were gonna get.
I mean, that's a huge undertaking to make that game, though, I would imagine. Like, with that said, Konami's been doing other stuff, like they brought back Silent Hill. Like, I don't think anybody expected they would do that. And the Netflix series has been well received. Like, you'd think that would show interest in a new Castlevania game.
The thing about Konami is that they don't seem to be interested in making new games anymore. They just do re-releases, remakes, and pachinko machines.
If it makes them enough money to keep going as a company, then why not? You know, I mean, granted, I know why not is to make the consumers happy, but like from a business standpoint, if they can exist off the bare minimum effort like that, I don't expect to see them try to do anything else anytime soon.
Well, maybe they'll surprise me and contract someone else to do another decent Castlevania game, but, you know, I doubt they'll do it in-house. They just don't seem to have the heart for the industry anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I just want Bloodstained 2. Like, that's all that, like, that's the...
It's so weird, though, because in the old days, Konami was extremely, like, obscenely active in the video game industry to the point where they supported every platform under the sun. And these days, it's just like, it's like pulling teeth to get anything out of them. Ugh.
I don't know, man. Konami do what Konami does, I guess.
I mean, at the very least, like, I'll give them credit for preserving the older games. You know, it takes them for fucking ever to do so, but they eventually do it.
Yeah, but like even that is outsourced work, you know? They're not doing anything themselves anymore.
I still respect them re-releasing shit that was originally locked behind certain things just to get people to play it again. At the same time, I would like the series to continue.
I would too. Oh well. Rest in peace, Castlevania.
It's not dead. Stop saying that.
Yes, it is.
If disco can come back, so can Castlevania.
Look, it can rise from the dead if it wants to. It's a series about vampires, but it's dead right now, okay?
So the solar eclipse. Can't get out.